Chapter 1501 Daily Museum. Yesterday, the boy was sitting on the sofa, and the two twin girls were hanging on him like koalas, and they were staring at the long-haired girl who was wearing an apron and cooking. Asuka angrily put her hands on her waist, puffed up her cheeks, and pointed at the twins with her right hand. They are obviously your sisters. Why do they always pester you? I am your girlfriend. Lin-chan and Ai-chan hugged Yuji tightly and said in unison, Lin-chan, Ai-chan, will not give her brother to you. At this time, Yuji, as the male protagonist, smiled helplessly. Zhang Yi touched his nose. Why is this scene so familiar? But this is not what he cares about. Yesterday, he remembered that he cut a wound on Yuji's body. But looking at him again, the wound has disappeared. Are these Edo residents unable to kill except for the ghosts that act at night? Even the damage caused to them will disappear with the arrival of daylight. Zhang Yi frowned, very confused. But soon, he saw something that made his eyes sharp. There was a pool of blood on the floor in front of the sofa. This was left by Zhang Yi yesterday, proving that Yuji was indeed injured by Zhang Yi. Unlike the slit-mouthed woman and the wheel entertainer, after they were killed, even the biological tissues taken away would disappear and reform their bodies. These residents of Edo Castle were not the same as the ghosts at night. Since it is not reset, it must have the ability to heal itself. Zhang Yi touched his chin. Next time, try to kill one person. See if he can survive. Zhang Yi did not plan to do it now because he had other things to do next. So he traveled through space and came outside the house, taking Yang Xinxin and Zhou Ke with him. Let's go. After leaving, he told the two of them what he saw and heard. Are they really living people? Zhou Ke raised such a question. They will become puppets that cannot move after nightfall, and then the injuries suffered at night will be restored when day comes. No matter how you look at it, they are no longer ordinary humans. She looked at the huge Edo castle and felt a bone-chilling coldness. Could it be that the entire Edo population has long been dead? And then they are controlled by some powerful alien and exist in a false form. Zhang Yi touched his chin, nodded and said, it is indeed possible. At least from the situation yesterday and today, they are actually repeating the same activities. It's just like ghosts. In the other direction of Edo City, Fatty Sue, Uncle Yu, and Hua came to the tavern yesterday again. The shocking scene yesterday was still vivid at this time. They remembered that the terrifying black ghost hand destroyed the tavern. Logically, so many people died with it, which must have caused some panic. But when they came here again, they saw a scene that surprised them. The original tavern was indeed destroyed, and the ruins were still there. But there was no human corpse in the ruins. Where did all those corpses go? Strange, this is really too strange. Fatty Sue's face turned pale. At this time, Uncle Yu pointed to the corner of the street not far away. Chun-Lei, look at that. Fatty Sue looked along Uncle Yu's hand and saw that another similar bar appeared on the other side of the street. It was obviously built temporarily. It seemed to be a roasted bird restaurant. The original bar's signboard replaced the roasted bird restaurant signboard. Because it was hung hastily, it was still a little crooked. Fatty Sue swallowed his saliva. Uncle Yu, let's go over and take a look. Okay. Uncle Yu didn't waste any words, and the two walked towards the new bar. The waiter who opened the door to greet them was still the same as yesterday. Then the mama-san in a white kimono came over to greet them enthusiastically and asked what kind of girl they liked. And here, Fatty Sue saw the hostess whose head he accidentally knocked off yesterday. She was still wearing revealing clothes, looking at Fatty Sue with a charming face. Her neck was tightly closed, and there was no sign of any wound. But looking at her pale face, Fatty Sue's blood almost froze. According to the original plan, Deng Shintong and others were active around the Daily Museum. Zhang Yi brought Mu Yan, Zhou Ke and Yang Xinxin directly to the Daily Museum. He took Zhou Ke and Yang Xinxin into the shadow, and after confirming the interior space of the Daily Museum, he traveled through space to the museum's bathroom. Zhang Yi pushed open the bathroom door, came to the sink, and adjusted his appearance in front of the mirror. He made sure that he looked no different from the Edo residents here, and then stepped into the corridor of the museum. The Dailiangdo National Museum is one of the largest museums in Japan. It displays a large number of ancient cultural relics from Japan and collected from overseas. Among them, a considerable number are from the Huashu Kingdom. Zhang Yi pretended to walk into the exhibition hall as if nothing had happened. According to the map instructions, there is a special exhibition of the Huashu Kingdom, the area of cultural relics. During the day, there are quite a few tourists here, and people can be seen everywhere commenting on each cultural relic. Zhang Yi walked forward slowly. He had never heard of many cultural relics here, but he could recognize them from Huashu State at a glance. Bronzeware, ink paintings, and some thread-bound ancient books. These are cultural colors that do not belong to neon. Zhang Yi admired these cultural relics through the glass and had an urge to take them all away. However, this urge was only fleeting. It is already the end of the world, and most of the cultural relics have no practical application value. As the saying goes, antiques in prosperous times are worth gold in troubled times, so in the end of the world, they are dispensable to most people. Now the most urgent task is to find the target of their trip first, and as for the others, they can be taken away at that time. Zhang Yi walked all the way in the Chinese pavilion, carefully looking for the target. To his surprise, it didn't take long for him to find Wang Shouren's Xinxue in an exhibition area that collected ancient books. It lay quietly in the glass cabinet, as if it had been immersed for hundreds of years, waiting for future generations to welcome it back to its homeland. Zhang Yi slowly walked to it and stared at the handwritten traditional Chinese characters on it. Is this it? Zhang Yi lowered his head and squinted his eyes to carefully examine the lines on it. He did not have a strong enough spiritual perception to be able to sense the remnants of supernatural powers from hundreds of years ago through the glass box. Chapter 15:02 Dragon Specimen. Just as Zhang Yi lowered his head to read the ancient book Xinxue, a figure suddenly appeared beside him. Are you also interested in the ancient culture of Huashu country? No one can suddenly appear beside Zhang Yi without being discovered by him. The alien of the space system is particularly sensitive to the movements around him. It can even be said that he, who has the mind field, can grasp any slight movement of the entire museum in his mind. This is why he did not choose to directly collect the ancient book Xinxue. Zhang Yi pretended to be surprised and turned his head to see a tall and thin clerk wearing a gray suit and gold glasses standing beside him. His hair was neatly combed into a 3:7 split. At this time, he was staring at the ancient books in the display case meticulously. He reached out to support the frame of his glasses and talked to Zhang Yi while watching. This guy is not an ordinary human. This thought immediately emerged in Zhang Yi's mind. In principle, the difference between aliens and ordinary people can only be seen when they show their abilities. But as a powerful alien who has experienced hundreds of battles, Zhang Yi can see the existence of most aliens in the crowd at a glance. 2 words: feeling. Those who possess extraordinary abilities also have a special temperament. Perhaps the person himself cannot perceive it, but others can feel it through subtle differences. What is difficult for an extraordinary person to conceal is his inner arrogance for being superior to ordinary people, and the murderous aura that cannot be concealed after being on the battlefield for a long time. Of course, there is a premise for this. That is, the other party did not deliberately conceal his aura. A guy like Zhang Yi, who always likes to disguise himself as a harmless invisible man, is definitely a tall and thin man in the field of disguise. There was no change in Zhang Yi's expression on his face, and he had confirmed the identity of the person in front of him in his heart. If it is not those puppets on standby at night, nor is it the night parade of 100 demons that only moves at night, then there is only one possibility for the other party, a member of the Imperial Demon Court who now rules Edo. This is probably the first member of the Imperial Demon Court that Zhang Yi has seen. He remained calm. Yes. The ancient Oriental country, their culture is indeed very interesting. The man with glasses crossed his arms with a sophisticated look and said lightly, "The ancient Huashu country has always had a world-leading civilization hundreds and thousands of years ago. Their culture has always been the object of our study. It's a pity that in the past few hundred years, they have not done much in the field of culture. They can only immerse themselves in the fantasy of the past. Zhang Yi sneered in his heart, but smiled and said, "That's right. If we talk about modern and contemporary culture, it is still our neon that leads the world." The man with glasses smiled and nodded. But then again, their past things are indeed interesting and have high research value. These things can help them to be better developed in neon. Otherwise, most of the things in this exhibition hall would probably have disappeared long ago. When the man with glasses said this, he had a proud look on his face. Zhang Yi had a barely perceptible sneer on his lips. "What are you proud of for the things you robbed by banditry?" The man with glasses turned around, and his words continued. "These ancient books are too profound, and they are all in traditional Chinese characters, so you can't understand them. If you want to understand Chinese culture, you may have to learn from some easy-to-understand things," the man with glasses said as he walked forward. Zhang Yi glanced at the Xinxue in the cabinet, and without hesitation, he followed the man with glasses. "Oh, really? Sir, please give me some advice." The man with glasses walked in the Chinese pavilion, with his hands behind his back, like a researcher. He stopped in front of a tall exhibition stand and pointed his finger. "For enthusiasts like you, this is the simplest and most direct way to understand the cultural relics of Chinese culture." Zhang Yi looked over in the direction of his finger. The moment he saw the cultural relics in the display cabinet, his pupils shrank slightly, uncontrollably. In recent years, there are definitely not many things that can surprise him so much. But he believes that no matter which people in Huaxi country, they will have the same or even more exaggerated reaction when they see it for the first time. Because in that display cabinet protected by 3 layers inside and outside, there is actually a golden dragon. It was not a sculpture or a work of art, but a lifelike specimen. It was not big, only about the size of a palm. With Zhang Yi's eyesight, he could clearly see its appearance that was completely consistent with the ancient legend. It was golden in color, with a slender body, for claws, and a horn on its head. Because it was so ancient, the claws and head were a little sloppy, but the dragon shape was very complete. If he had seen it somewhere else, Zhang Yi would definitely suspect that it was just a crude handicraft. But it happened to appear in the Darando National Museum in Edo. And Zhang Yi remembered that he had seen this news on the news. Seeing it with his own eyes now, the shock was even stronger. The man with glasses seemed very satisfied with Zhang Yi's reaction. "How about it? Isn't it interesting? This is the in Chinese legend. In their culture, they regard it as an ancestor. The people of Huaxi claim that their ancestors are dragons. Isn't this very interesting? They are obviously bipedal primates, but they regard reptiles as their ancestors." Zhang Yi pointed at the golden dragon and asked, "But shouldn't this thing be a legendary creature? Why do I feel that the thing in front of me is just a model? It can't be real, right?" The man with glasses replied, "Don't talk nonsense. This is clearly recorded in history. At the beginning, he spent a lot of money to buy it from the land of Huaxi State." The man with glasses shrugged. "In the past, I thought the existence of these mythical creatures was incredible, but in today's world, all kinds of strange things have appeared." His voice suddenly became low. He adjusted his glasses and turned his head to look into the distance. Just like the gods in myths and legends, the ghosts and monsters that roam at night, and the strange creatures in the classic of mountains and seas. In certain special times, their existence does not make people feel abnormal. Zhang Yi said lightly. "For example, now?" "That's right." The man with glasses nodded. Zhang Yi took a deep breath and stared at the golden dragon that was only the size of a palm. In his mind, the creature he saw under the Qinling abyss emerged. The white creature with a nearly dragon-like shape that can transform into a human body, the guy officially called Bailongzi. Note: the name of Bailongzi. Different races have different languages. Humans named it Bailongzi. The races under the Qinling abyss have other names, which are translated into Bailongzi. Here they are all called Bailongzi for ease of understanding. The same applies to other existences that appeared later. Chapter 1503. Human Race. While Zhang Yi was thinking, a voice rang out again. Maeda, if you have time to stay here and chat with these seed people, you might as well go to the master and listen to his admonition. A woman came from the back, a very tall woman with thick black hair. Her hair was down to her waist, her big eyes were as black as ink, and her pupils took up 80% of her eyes. This proportion can usually only be seen in comics. But if a real person looks like this, it will give people a strange sense of beauty. She was wearing a black leather coat, which perfectly showed her curvy figure. The low-heeled leather boots on her feet stepped on the ground, making a tap-tap sound. Seed people. Zhang Yi was very interested in this word. He thought of the puppets who were on standby at night, and in this room, except for a few members of the demon court, most of them were puppets. But in the daytime, it was not accurate to call them puppets. Zhang Yi had personally verified that they were no different from ordinary people. They would have emotions, and they would get hurt and bleed. So, what exactly is the so-called kind of people? The bespectacled man Maeda Yuichiro looked back at her. Miss Purgatory Star, how come you have time to come here? Are you looking for me? Purgatory Star walked up to Maeda Yuichiro with her long legs. She didn't even look at Zhang Yi next to her, as if he didn't exist. The master asked me to inform you that Edo seems to be a little uneasy recently. You'd better not immerse yourself in the museum all day. Bring more of your people and patrol around Edo. Maeda Yuichiro frowned. Do you mean that there are aliens from the outside world invading? Could it be those guys from Colombia? Purgatory Star shook his head. We don't have any information at the moment. It's just that the whole Edo is under the master's nose. He can feel that the atmosphere has changed subtly. Maeda Yuichiro raised the corner of his mouth and smiled disapprovingly. Who dares to approach Edo City now? Even if Colombia's top alien troops come, I'm afraid they will die in vain. Zhang Yi's heart moved. What exactly does this guy mean? Where do they get the confidence to fight against the alien army of Colombia? You know, in terms of national strength, Colombia and Huashu are only on par. It is not easy to destroy a country of the level of Neon, but it will definitely not consume too much power. Unless something unusual happens. Is it related to the night parade of 100 demons that appears in Edo at night? Could it be that Neon is colluding with a mysterious civilization? Such thoughts made Zhang Yi feel a headache. Even the weakest mysterious civilization he had experienced, the Nash kingdom, had a powerful force that could shake the entire Huashu kingdom. If Neon and the mysterious civilization join forces, it will indeed become a daunting force. Then their action plan may not be so easy to complete. Zhang Yi looked at the dragon specimen in the display case and the Xinqiuan. After pondering for a moment, he gave up on putting them in his pocket now. Things are a little subtle. The trip to Neon is much more complicated than imagined. Zhang Yi felt that Deng Xintong must be hiding something from him. Purgatory Star and Maeda Yuichiro next to them were still chatting as if no one was around, and they ignored the tourists passing by. The shabby place of the Great Liangdu Museum is full of garbage from the old times. There is no need to waste time here. Maeda, if you have so much time, you'd better spend it on the Immortal Mountain. There are things that we should protect the most. After listening to Purgatory Star's words, Maeda Yuichiro adjusted his glasses, and his eyes became sharper. Woman, you don't understand the importance of preserving the fire of civilization. These are all treasures of our human culture. He opened his arms, as if he wanted to embrace the entire Great Liangdu Museum. If the fire of civilization cannot be continued, the continuation of the human race will only be a barbaric shell. It's meaningless. Purgatory Star covered his head helplessly. Damn it. Why should a blockhead like you become a cadre of the demon court? Maeda Yuichiro said coldly, I am only interested in becoming an alien. Anyway, I have brought the order from the master. You know what to do next. After saying this, Purgatory Star turned around and walked away with a chic step. She has a very good figure, and it can be seen that she has been trained for many years, especially the muscles of her calves, which are as tight and powerful as a cheetah. Therefore, it can be judged that she is a master of close combat and has excellent physical fitness. From her tone, it can be judged that she is also a cadre of the demon court and a confidant of the evil boy. Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes, turned his head away, pretending to be indifferent to their conversation, and continued to watch the exhibits in front of him. Maeda Yuichiro glared at the direction where Purgatory Star left with some disgust, turned around, and spoke again with a distance of more than 1 meter from Zhang Yi. Living in such a world is really disgusting. If I had stayed in peacetime, I should have been an excellent researcher. Zhang Yi glanced at him and said nothing. He didn't quite know what the seed man mentioned by Maeda Yuichiro was. So, he would not reveal his identity if he spoke less. Maeda Yuichiro sighed. It doesn't seem to make any sense to tell you this. You just live as a seed, immersed in endless reincarnation day and night. Perhaps this is also a kind of happiness. He lowered his head and pondered. There is a lot of information in this sentence. Zhang Yi's mind is also running fast. Live as a seed? What seed? The seed of human reproduction? Or something else? And the following sentence, day and night, immersed in endless reincarnation. What does it mean? Soon, this information made Zhang Yi have a bold guess. He looked at Maeda Yuichiro and asked with a puzzled look, "Hey, uncle, what do you mean by this sentence?" Maeda Yuichiro stared at Zhang Yi meaningfully, sighed, and reached out to pat his shoulder. Nothing. Even if you know the truth, you will forget it completely soon. In fact, sometimes I envy people like you. At least you don't have any troubles. After saying this, he walked past Zhang Yi and walked towards the other direction of the museum. Chapter 15:04 Ming Haizongxi. After Maeda Yuichiro and Purgatory Star left, Zhang Yi took a deep look at the Xinxue in the display case, turned around and walked to a secluded corner of the Daliangde Museum. When he confirmed that there was no one around, he left immediately. He sent a message to everyone in the communication channel, asking them to gather. The original location of Xinxue has been confirmed. Don't act alone for the time being. When it gets dark, we will act. Then, Zhang Yi determined the meeting place, which was a secluded small restaurant on the street. Not long after, Deng Xintong and his team arrived one after another. Because of their presence, the small restaurant basically had no extra seats. Zhang Yi ordered a few signature dishes and asked the proprietress to bring them up. After investigation, he has found that these people do not know the condition of their bodies and still treat themselves as ordinary people living in peacetime. Even these foods can be eaten. Of course, this is true in principle, but Zhang Yi will not choose to eat food of unknown origin. Even if it is not poisonous, neon food may make his stomach uncomfortable. If he is fighting at that time, it will be bad if he has diarrhea. Deng Xintong sat opposite Zhang Yi, looked at the boss lady busy in the kitchen, and said to Zhang Yi in a low voice, "How is the defense in the museum?" This is Edo, the headquarters of the Yuma court. The Daliangde Museum is located in the central area of Edo. It is always in the center of the Yuma court's eyes and ears, and it is impossible to be unguarded. Zhang Yi said lightly, "There are indeed some characters who look powerful inside. If you take action, it will definitely alarm the guys in the Yuma court." Deng Xintong nodded. "It is indeed unnecessary to alert the snake. As long as we are sure that Xinxue was originally there, we can sneak in tonight and take it away." Zhang Yi drank a glass of water, then wait for the night to fall. The two looked out the window. It was afternoon, and it was not long before nightfall. Soon, they would see the weird scene of the night parade of 100 ghosts again. Dusk is getting thicker. In Edo Castle, there are suddenly more figures today. They are wearing uniform suits, holding samurai swords or 10 hands, and guns in their hands. They are members of the largest alien organization in Japan today, the Yumading. Ever since the evil boy defeated the two major organizations, the Pelican and the Izumo, the Yumading has become the true king of Japan. And each of the Yumading members in Edo is an elite with extraordinary strength. Even if they are just some grassroots members responsible for patrolling, they must have at least 6,000 points of supernatural power index. On the streets of Ginza, the sky was snowing as usual. A dozen Yumading members wearing black suits and holding long swords walked in the middle of the road at an unhurried pace. Passers-by would cast a suspicious look, thinking that these people were just cosplay enthusiasts. But it must be said that these modern warriors do have a decisive momentum of killing. Several girls cast curious eyes at the passing warriors, and when their eyes fell on the man with silver curly hair, they blushed unconsciously. A girl mustered up her courage and ran to them on the snow. "Hello. Can we exchange contact information?" She looked at the curly-haired man boldly and then handed over her mobile phone. The samurai behind the curly-haired man looked strange and then looked at the guy who always had a lazy expression. But from their reactions, it can be seen that this situation is not the first time. The curly-haired samurai did not answer the phone, but put his hands in his pockets and said to the girl lightly, "Little girl, it's getting late. You should go home quickly. Your parents should be worried." "Hey? You don't want to give it to me? If the uncle exchanges contact information with me, I can accompany you to the park," the girl said unwillingly. The curly-haired samurai shook his head. "Sorry, I'm not interested in girls with small breasts." This sentence made the girl's face change suddenly. After scolding "pervert" fiercely, she ran away angrily. The curly-haired samurai didn't care at all. He just scratched his head and looked at the dark clouds gradually covering the sky above Ginza. "It's going to be night again," a bald samurai behind him said. "Master Ming-hai, let's hide. Those guys in the shadows will attack anyone." The captain of the Demon Guard's first squadron, Ming-hai Suji, lowered his eyes, and a solemn expression appeared on his face. "But the master said that Edo has not been peaceful recently." He pressed the long sword Kikuchimonji on his waist with one hand, and his eyes were as sharp as a long sword unsheathed. "Last night, I felt a powerful thought passing over the sky of Edo." The team members showed shock on their faces. Could it be that an enemy has appeared? Today's Edo castle is under the rule of our demon guards, like an iron barrel. Coupled with the strange phenomenon of the night parade of 100 demons, any enemy who appears here will only end up dead. Ming-hai Suji glanced back at them and scolded loudly, "Don't underestimate others. Bastards." "Yes, yes, Captain." This world has become unimaginable. Neon is not a country strong enough to ignore everything. Now the power of the demon court has also paid a sufficient price. Ming-hai Suji covered his forehead with his right hand. "Amaterasu, bless this land and its people." After 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the sky of Edo quickly dimmed, as if it had been agreed. The dark clouds in the sky were like a huge black cloth, which was quickly pulled from the distant sky and covered the huge sky. The originally vibrant Edo city turned into a dead city in an instant. There were no traces of pedestrians on the streets. Even the members of the demon court who ruled here quickly hid in the darkness and dared not wander on the streets. Zhang Yi sat in the small restaurant, looking at the boss and waiter who had fallen into standby mode. He stood up. "Let's go." Everyone stood up, ready to enter the Daliangde Museum and take back the things that belonged to the Huashu Kingdom. This distance was just enough for a space shuttle. Zhang Yi opened the two-dimensional door and stepped into it. Everyone filed in and entered the museum, completely different from daytime. The lights here were turned off, and there was a dead silence. The ancient artifacts displayed in the display cabinets added a bit of weird and terrifying atmosphere here. This was not a problem for everyone. The night vision function of the combat uniform was activated, and it was completely possible to see things in a dark environment. "Follow me." Zhang Yi walked forward, crossed the huge corridor, and headed straight for the Chinese area. The others followed closely behind. Chapter 15:05 The Real Target. The staggered footsteps echoed in the silent museum, which made people feel a little thrilling, fearing that they would wake up some mysterious existence. However, Zhang Yi understood that this feeling came from the hundreds of ghosts walking on the streets of Edo at night. So they had to hurry up and get the target. At this time, the thick fog had already risen in Edo City. In the place covered by the fog, from the center of Edo City, the hideous and huge ghosts began to move along the streets, as if patrolling their territory. Suddenly, when they passed by the Daliangde Museum, monsters began to turn their heads and look here. A red giant ghost opened its nose and sniffed hard, with greedy light flashing in its eyes, and then began to rush here along the long steps of the museum. The thick gray fog began to surge towards the Daliangda Museum, and more monsters gathered. Even though it is the largest museum in Edo, it seems so small in the tide of monsters. In the Daliangda Museum, Zhang Yi led everyone to the display case, where Xinxue was placed. Seeing the ancient book, Uncle Yu and Fatty Su showed a relaxed smile on their faces. Unexpectedly, this mission was completed so easily. They didn't want to stay in this damn ghost place for a moment. Zhang Yi stretched out his right hand, and the display case broke directly, and Xinxue flew into his hand. At the same time, outside the museum, the sound of doors and windows being smashed came here. Hua la la. The tempered glass could not resist the giant ghosts even for a moment. They smelled the breath of the living and let out a creepy roar and quickly crawled towards the direction where Zhang Yi and others were. Damn, those ghosts are coming. Boss, let's retreat, Fatty Su said hurriedly. Zhang Yi looked down at the ancient book Xinxue in his hand and flipped it casually. But what was displayed in front of him was a pile of white paper. There was no text recorded in it at all. How could this be? This is fake. Liang Yu widened his eyes, unable to believe that they only found a fake. Zhang Yi's expression did not fluctuate much. It's not surprising. Liang Yu raised her head and was about to ask Deng Shintong what was going on. But she suddenly found that Deng Shintong and Bai Chunyu had disappeared from the spot. Roar! The ghosts let out a creepy cry and rushed towards Zhang Yi and others impatiently. Zhang Yi didn't even look at them. He put his right index finger and middle finger together and gently twisted them forward like turning a key. God's domain purification. In an instant, an extremely powerful force appeared in the center of the monsters, squeezing all of them together fiercely. A large amount of flesh and blood was crushed, and the dark blood flowed down like juice, staining the floor of the Daliangda Museum black. Zhang Yi turned his head and looked into the distance. Deng Shintong and Bai Chunyu came to another display case and quickly took down the entire display case. And in that display case, there was a golden dragon. So your goal is this? Zhang Yi said lightly. Deng Shintong carefully put the little dragon into his tactical backpack. He looked at Zhang Yi with an apologetic smile on his face. Sorry, Zhang Yi. There is something I didn't tell you in advance. But for me, this thing is more valuable. Amber once told him that the mysterious object in the Daliangda Museum was not Wang Shouren's Xinxue, but this mysterious little golden dragon. In other words, Deng Shintong had concealed Zhang Yi from the beginning and asked him to help him create opportunities to get this golden dragon. For Deng Shintong, this may contain an opportunity for him to be promoted to Ypsilon. Zhang Yi smiled lightly, not caring at all, and just threw the fake Xinxue to the ground. Now I know your real purpose, but I have something to tell you. This Xinxue is fake, and do you think the golden dragon specimen you got is real? Zhang Yi's words made the smile on Deng Shintong's face freeze. Especially Zhang Yi's face without any surprise, which made Deng Shintong suddenly realize. You knew that these things were fake. It couldn't be confirmed before, but I made this preparation, Zhang Yi said lightly. Things displayed in the museum may not be all real, especially some precious cultural relics, which are usually displayed with substitutes. The real ones are either stored in an absolutely safe place or have already become the private collections of some big shots. Just as Zhang Yi and the others were talking, the 100 ghosts that were originally wiped out by Zhang Yi were reviving. The black bloodstains on the ground disappeared, and the ghosts reappeared in the museum and then rushed towards Zhang Yi and others with a ferocious roar. Deng Shintong smiled bitterly in his heart. He thought he had succeeded in stealing the chicken, but he didn't expect that everything was still within Zhang Yi's calculations. Actually, I plan to explain it to you clearly when I go back. The research results of the golden dragon will also be shared with you, he explained. Zhang Yi just glanced at him indifferently, but did not reply. Everyone has selfish motives. Since he didn't say it at the beginning, Deng Shintong must be planning to keep the core secrets privately. Forget it, let's leave here first. Zhang Yi said indifferently, and at the same time opened the dimensional door. These ghosts can't be killed at all, so it's meaningless to waste time here. If there is anything, wait until you go back. But just when Zhang Yi opened the dimensional door and was about to take people away, an old and somewhat naughty voice sounded in everyone's ears. The tumbler fell down. In an instant, Zhang Yi's body seemed to be tightly controlled by something, and he couldn't move at all. Not only him, but everyone present was in a state of being unable to move. The evil spirits let out a shrill roar, and hundreds of evil spirits ran towards Zhang Yi and the others ferociously, with greedy and bloodthirsty light in their eyes, and they wanted to gnaw every bone of them clean. Sunluo Wanxiang. At the critical moment, Zhang Yi opened his dimensional door and blocked the evil ghosts. A group of evil ghosts entered his dimensional door and disappeared directly. Seeing this, the evil ghosts behind stopped outside the door area, but still stared at Zhang Yi and others. Unknowingly, the entire museum has been completely occupied by ghosts, and even outside the museum, a large number of ghosts are constantly pouring in. The little humans are in the middle of the museum, and Zhang Yi's invisible dimensional door keeps the ghosts out like a barrier. At such a close distance, you can see the hideous and terrifying ghosts. But what Zhang Yi cares most about is the guy who just activated his ability and made everyone unable to move. Dear viewers, please subscribe for more videos. Thanks.